Shalom, shalom, Israel. This is Yahweh. Been sitting in my car reading this book, uh, The Jesuit Relations. So I was reading about this earthquake that happened in 1662, and I'm gonna tell y'all something. Reading 3 pages, the Most High changed the whole landscape of Canada coming down into North America. He changed the whole landscape. Mountains were moved. Where there was forests, they turned into valleys. Where rivers were, they were literally, rivers were moved somewhere else. When I read what took place during this earthquake, it's phenomenal. Like, you will not believe how much destruction. And there were also lights in the sky. It was a lot. I'm gonna just start reading it. If it sounds like I start stuttering or anything like that, it's because I'm not used to doing this, and I'm actually a kind of private person. I don't really do a lot of stuff out in the open. Well, I'm just not that type of dude. I stay to myself. So, like the video before, I kind of stuttered a little bit or whatever, and got a little caught up on words, is because I'm just nervous doing stuff like this. I've never been a type person to do stuff like this, but when the Most High tell you to do something, yeah, you could say no a couple times, but that spirit jump on you and it keep talking, you're gonna break, you're gonna do it. So here we go. And yesterday I was actually reading through the screen of my cell phone, so I had to move my phone out the way so I could see the words better. Yeah. So I'll be moving the phone back and forth, just so you know, but I'll try to keep it on the page. Okay? All right. Here we go. Universal earthquake in Canada and its marvelous effects. On the 5th of February, 1663, about 5:30 in the evening, a loud roaring was heard at the same time throughout the length and breadth of Canada. This noise, which sounded as if the houses were on fire, made everyone rush outdoors to escape so unexpected a conflagration. But instead of smoke and flames, people were much surprised to see the walls swaying and all the stones in motion, as if they had been detached. Roofs seemed to bend down in one direction and then back again in the other. Bells rang on their own accord. Oh, what was that? Jeez, I lost at that bit. On their own accord, beams, joists, and boards creaked, and the ground leaped, making a Placide stakes dance in a way that would not have seemed possible. We had not witnessed it in different places. Then all left their houses. Animals took flight. Children cried in the streets. Men and women, seized with terror, knew not where to take refuge, as they expected at any moment to be either overwhelmed under the ruins of houses or swallowed up in some abyss that would open beneath their feet. Some knelt in the snow and cried for mercy, while others passed the rest of the night in prayer, for the earthquake still continued, maintaining a certain swaying motion much like that of ships at sea. So what he just said is this was an earthquake that continued all night long. This is serious, you know? And I got an idea. This is what's going to happen when the Most High rises up to shake the earth violently. I don't think it's going to be a 10-minute earthquake. I think it's going to last long. You know, a lot of people are going to lose their lives. So that some experience from this tossing, the same heaving of the stomach that one suffers on the water, seasick. So that means that the earth was moving back and forth for a nice time, a nice long time. All right. The disturbance was much greater in the forest. There seemed to be a battle between the trees as they crashed against one another, and not merely with their branches. It seemed that even the trunks were being torn out to leap one upon another with a din and confusion that made our Indians say that all the woods were drunken. War seemed to have pitted even the mountains against one another. The mountains were crashing against one another. That's a strong earthquake. Some of them being uprooted and hurled against one another, leaving yawning chasms. That's serious, y'all. In the places from which they had sprung. At times too, they buried the trees that covered them deep in the ground up to the topmost branches, and at other times they would thrust them into the ground, branches downward in the place of the roots, leaving only a forest of upturned trunks. During this general wreck on land, ice of 5 and 6 feet in thickness burst into fragments, and as it split open in various places, great clouds of smoke or jets of mud and sand issued forth and ascended high in the air. Our springs either ceased to flow, or gave forth only sulphurous waters. Rivers either disappeared entirely or were thoroughly defiled. The waters of some turning yellow, while others went red. And our great river, St. Lawrence, appeared all whitish, almost as far as, I'm not even going to try to pronounce this word. Let's see. I am going to try to. Tadawasak, I guess. A prodigy truly astonishing. I couldn't get that word out of my mouth. To those who knew the volume of water carried by this broad river below. The Ile d'Orleans, and how much matter it must have taken to whiten it. The air was not exempt from the disturbance affecting the waters and the earth. Besides the roaring and constant proceeding and accompanied the earthquake, specters were seen, as well as fiery phantoms bearing torches in their hands. Y'all hear this? Pikes and lances of fire were seen waving in the air, and burning torches gliding over our houses without, however, doing further injury than to spread alarm whenever they were seen. You know, I hate to be the one to say this, but these white people crazy. Because if I went in somebody's land, took their stuff, and then a crazy out of pocket earthquake hit, and now I'm seeing creatures and spirits flying around. I'm not staying here. I'm gone. I'm not gonna sit. These people crazy. They really don't have no common sense. There was even heard during the silence of the night, which sounded like plaintive and feeble voices in lamentation, while white porpoises, belugas, I don't know what that means, were heard crying aloud before the town of Three Rivers. A very unusual occurrence, filling the air with a pitiful bellowing. Word came from Montreal that during the earthquake, fence stakes were plainly seen to jump up and down as if in a dance of two doors in the same room. One closed itself and the other opened, and of its own accord. Chimneys and housetops bent like tree branches shaken by the wind on raising the foot in walking. One felt the ground coming up after him and raising in proportion to the height to which he lifted his foot. So he's saying, as you would take a step, the ground, your foot would not leave the ground. The ground would literally stay under your foot while you're lifting your leg up in the air. That means you can't walk. You can't, because you got to be able to get some type of thrust, to push off. These people crazy. Sometimes giving the soul a quite smart rap, and other similarly surprising things. From Three Rivers, they wrote as follows: the first and severest of all the shocks began with a rumbling like thunder, and the houses were shaken like treetops during a storm, amid a noise that made people think there was a fire crackling in their attics. Oh yeah, and I'm sorry about the sniffling. My wife had the vent directly on my face last night, so it kind of clogged me up a little bit. So I'm a little clogged up, but it'll clear up once I get out the truck, turn his air off. All right. This first shock continued half an hour, although its full force really lasted only a scant quarter of an hour. Now remember, this is a count from somebody else. This is not what the man was telling you he saw. This is from somewhere else. Quarter of an hour. There was not a person who did not think the earth was about to split open. We further observed that while this earthquake was almost continuously still, it was not of the same intensity, sometimes resembling the rocking of a great vessel, riding gently that anchor, a motion which caused giddiness in many. Sometimes the disturbance was irregular and precipitated by various sharp movements, and sometimes of considerable severity. At other times more moderate, but most commonly consisting of a slight quivering motion, which was perceptible during intervals of quiet. According to the report of many of our Frenchmen and our Indians who witnessed the quake 5 or 6 leagues up our river, the St. Maurice, the banks on either side of the river, which used to raise to the prodigious height, are now flat, having been shaken from their foundations and reduced to the level of the water. These two mountains, with all their forest cover, fell into the river and formed there a mighty dike that forced that stream to change its course and to spread over the flats that had been created. Here it carved a new channel, picking up earth and mingling it with the waters, which became so thick and turbid as to change the color of the great St. Lawrence River. You can imagine how much soil it takes to keep these waters flowing constantly full of mar. Every day for nearly 3 months, new lakes are seen where there were none before some mountains have disappeared. You hear this? Some mountains have disappeared, having been swallowed up. A number of rapids have been leveled. A number of rivers have disappeared. The earth was rent in many places, and it has opened chasms whose depths cannot be sounded. In some, such confusion has been wrought of woods overturned and swallowed up, that we now see fields of more than 1,000 acres utterly bare, and as if newly plowed, where a short time ago there were only forests. This is serious. You see what the Most High did to this landscape, and we didn't know nothing about this. No, I've never heard about this in history, about an earthquake that literally changed the whole landmass. Mountains disappeared, rivers disappeared, forests looked like somebody plowed them down. Never heard of this. I've never read none of this in any history book. This is crazy. But it ain't crazy. It's what they get. Wicked behind. We learned from the Tadoussac, I guess, I don't know, area, that the earthquake was no less severe there than elsewhere. That a shower of ashes was seen crossing the river like a great storm. Ouch, my arm is killing me. And that anyone following the coast from there to Cap de Tormonte would see its prodigious effects. Near Bay St. Paul, on the edge of the river, a small mountain about a quarter of a league in circumference sank into the water. Wow, man, my fault. But as though merely diving, it rose again from the depths to become an island. So a mountain fell into the ocean and then rose back up, and it's an island now. Wow. Changing a dangerous stretch of water into a haven of safety against the winds. And further down near Point Aux, whatever that word is, I'm not even going there, a whole forest broke away from the mainland and slid into the river, so that now green living trees can be seen growing straight up out of the water. All in all, 3 circumstances make this the most remarkable earthquake. The first is its duration, for it continued into the month of August. This was a month-long earthquake. That is for more than 6 months. Oh my gosh. Immediately, the shocks were not always equally severe in all places. The second circumstance concerned the extent of this earthquake, which we believe to have affected all of New France. For we learned that it was felt from El Pierce and Gasp, which are at the mouth of our river, up to Montreal and beyond, as well as New England, Acadia, and other far distant regions. Thus, as far as we can tell, the earthquake occurred over the tract of 2,000 leagues. Oh, 200, my fault, I'm sorry. 200 leagues in length by 100 in width, or an area of 20,000 square leagues. That's a lot of land. All of which was shaken at once, at the same minute of the same day. Wow. Well, I actually this part here, and where I stopped here, I didn't get to read that, so that just goes to show you the Most High shook the life out of Canada and changed a lot of the landscape. And this is, I've never heard of this before. I've never heard of it, but I don't know. One of our brothers and sisters, you might have read this in one of the new books that's been opened up by the Most High. You know, where we're finding out more information. Maybe you read this, and maybe this will coincide with what you read. If you did, put it out there. Put it out there so our brothers and sisters can know what's really going on out here. Because as far as I'm concerned, this awakening is way, it is strange. Like the Most High said, they will be surprised by the strangeness of our salvation. And wow, that's all I can say. So I hope you guys enjoy your day. I'm going to take my behind in here and go do some work. This is where I'm working at. You see the building across the street. We're remodeling it. So I got to go in here and do some duct work. Shalom.